So let's go ahead and start for today's notes. Today we're going to solve quadratic roots by factoring. So remember that quadratic roots are when we have a parabola that hits the x-axis. So if we're looking at a graph, when we have a parabola where it hits the x-axis, these are our roots. Here I have two roots. Now, other terms for roots, remember that could be zeros, x-intercepts, solution, and of course, the term that we've been using, roots. There are 3 steps to factor quadratic roots. We will go back through these 3 steps for each problem. The first step, simply by looking at our problem, you want to make sure that it's in standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. The second step is to factor. If there's any common factor, you want to pull out the greatest common factor first. You need to also look at the number of terms. If you have 2 terms, you're going to use the difference of square methods. If you have 3 terms, you're going to use the star or snowflake method. After you factor your trinomial, you're going to find your solution set by setting each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So let's go ahead and find the solution set for our first problem. Step 1, take a look at it. Check to see it's in standard form, x squared, x, and I have my c value. It is in standard form. So, step 2, factor. I'm going to take a look. I have 1, 3, and 10. I don't really have a great common factor that I can take out. So, now I look at the number of terms. I have 1, 2, 3 terms. So, I'm going to go ahead and do the star snowflake method. Draw my x and a dash through it. Take a look at your first term, your a term. You're going to put that on the wings. Then you're going to take a look at b. You're going to put that at the bottom. And negative 10 is going to go on top. Now, to fill in these 2 missing areas, you need to find 2 numbers that when multiplied together gives you negative 10. And then when you add it together, it's going to give you positive 3. So I want to find negative 10, factors of negative 10. Negative 1 and 10, negative 2 and 5, then switch your signs, 1 negative 10, 2 negative 5. So here are all the factors that I have for negative 10 that could go into here. Now I need to add them together and see which one's going to give me positive 3. So negative 1, 10 will give me 9. This will give me 3, negative 9, negative 3. Use your calculators to help you with this, especially if you're working with integers. If you know it already, use your calculators to double check yourself. So I know I'm going to use negative 2 and 5. So I have x minus 2, x plus 5, These are my 2 factors of the trinomial. I'm done with step 2. Moving on to step 3, I have to set each factor, here's 1, here's the other factor, equal to 0. Equal to 0, equal to 0. Now I need to solve for x. Simple one-step equation. I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to use the inverse operation. So if I have x minus 2, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. This cancels out. I have x left over. 0 plus 2 is 2. My inverse operation for this would be to subtract 5 from both sides. This cancels out. X is left over. 0 minus negative 5 is going to give me negative 5. To put this into your answer form, I want you guys to put this in these fancy brackets. You're going to write down x equals. Go ahead and set up your fancy bracket. You're going to put down 2, comma, negative 5. And complete your fancy brackets. That's it. This is your solution set. for the first problem, basically your answer. Let's go ahead and take a look at the second problem, or the first problem in the 4 below. I'll walk through this one with you, and after that, I'll give you directions on how to do the next 3. So take a look at the first one. X squared, x, number. It is in standard form. Check, step 1, done. Easy as that. 2, factor. I don't see any common factors because I have 1, 4, and 3. I have 1, 2, 3 terms, so I'm going to go ahead and do this method. I'm going to draw my x, split A up. I'm going to put B on the bottom and C on top. Factors of positive 3, 1 and 3, negative 1 and negative 3. Add those factors together. I need to get 4. This would give me 4. So I put down 1 and 3. So I have my factors, so x minus 1 and x minus 3. That is step 2. I am done factoring. Step 3, set them both to 0 and solve for x. Add 1 to both sides. X is going to give me 1. Add 3 to both sides. X is going to give me 3. Put this in your fancy brackets. X, fancy bracket, 1, comma, 3. Fancy brackets. Okay. If this is still a little confusing, at this time I want you to stop, rewind, and either go through the first example or the second example. If you feel comfortable, I want you to pause the video and try the second problem on your own. When you're ready to move on and see what the answer is, press play. At this time, pause the video. Okay, so you're done pausing the video. If you're pressing play, that means you're either finished with the problem or you're pretty comfortable with it and you just want to move on. So if I take a look at that problem, your answer should be -8, -3. I have 1, 2, 3 terms. It's in standard form. I set it up. I have x plus 8, x plus 3. I set my factors to 0. I solve for x and I put them in the fancy brackets. Pause now if you want to continue looking through this problem. If you got this correct or you understand how to go through this, I want you to try the next problem at the very bottom. Pause now. Okay, so you've either are super comfortable with this, which is why you didn't try it on your own, and you just want to go through the next problem. So you should have tried that on your own, and now let's go ahead and check your answer for the bottom one. So on the very bottom one, you should have gotten 1, -2 as your solution set. Here's my problem. It's in standard form. I'm going to factor it. There's no greatest common factor, so I'm going to set the star method. That's a pretty ugly star, but here it is nevertheless. Here are my 2 factors. Set it to 0, solve for x, and then put it in those fancy brackets. Okay, I have about 30 seconds left. Go ahead and try the very last one on your own. Press pause now. Okay, you've pressed play, so let's go ahead and take a look at the very last problem. It's in standard form. There's 3 terms. I'm going to factor it using the star method. Here are my 2 factors. I set them all to 0, solve for x, and put them in fancy brackets. Okay, if you take a look at your problem of the day, go ahead and solve, oops, wrong one, problem of the day. I want you to go ahead and solve for level 2. Here's a hint. Take a look at this. how many terms do you have? Make sure you use the correct method in order to factor that.